Hey guys, what's up? Welcome back here to today's edition of Intuitive Angling, and really appreciate you guys swinging by the channel to check today's video out, because today we're going to talk about chatterbait tips and some things that you can do with your chatterbait fishing to catch more bass on them in 2025 than you ever have before. Now I know that YouTube is saturated with chatterbait videos, but most of them are very fundamental and very basic, and a lot of the YouTube creators just copy off of other people. But I've got some personal experience with these things that I've been using them ever since they started over 20 years ago that have really helped me catch a lot more fish. So I'm going to share some of those more subtle aspects of the chatterbait fishing with you guys today. Before we get started, I just want to invite everybody to please swing by and check out my Blaukats Corner link on Tackle Warehouse. This is a page that I have on Tackle Warehouse where every month I recommend some of the top lures for that particular month, along with a correlating video. I'll link that in the description of the video, as long as with all my other links I put in there. So really appreciate the support with that, guys. And also please hit that subscribe button if you hadn't had a chance to do that. It's a really good way to support intuitive angling here. Okay, let's go over sort of a broad ranging talk here on chatterbaits. It's going to help you out for next year if you've never done it. So first of all, let's talk a little bit about the chatterbait. And then we're going to talk about, some retrieves and, type of areas that you want to fish them in. So first of all, a lot of people on the chatterbaits, everybody seems to be going to that jackhammer. Let me show you guys one here, the difference. We talked about this before. This is the jackhammer version, which is significantly more expensive. This thing's about 16 bucks, and it's a high quality bait. Don't get me wrong, guys. It's got a better hook in it. It's got a better keeper. It's got a hand-tied skirt. It's a really nice bait. But guys, I still prefer the old grunged out chatterbait, just the old original chatterbait. It's low tech. The components on it aren't as good, but the reason I prefer it, I just catch more fish on it. I don't know what it is about it, because I can take a jackhammer that looks better, and actually it even looks better in the water, and I catch probably 25% more fish or more on the old grunged out $5.99 chatterbait as I do this jackhammer. Only thing I can figure is something to do with the vibration. It's got to have something to do with the vibration. The fish like the original chatterbait better. So I prefer this. I still use the jackhammer occasionally, but I do prefer the old chatterbait. And also, guys, I'll link some of my favorite bladed jigs and trailers in my Tackle Warehouse link in the description if you guys would like to get some. Now, another thing that I do with it, this will help you guys out next year, is the blades on the original chatterbaits and even on the jackhammers, especially the painted ones, will chip, if you hit them on the bottom a lot. So carry a wide range of bottles of fingernail polish with you. Fingernail polish is a great touch-up for the chatterbait blades. It lasts a long time. I use a lot of different colors. My favorite is black. I've experimented with green pumpkins and browns, for the blades, but I catch more fish just on a black chatterbait blade than anything else. Either a black or chrome. Occasionally I'll use red like in the pre-spawn, but most of the time it's a black chatterbait like that. Now the colors range widely. Two primary colors that I do use are some type of a green pumpkin crawdad looking color like this with some orange and brown in it for when those fish are maybe feeding on crawdads a little bit more, and then some type of a shad pattern. So these are my basic two colors on there. Now, sometimes based upon the water clarity, I'll change up the tint of the skirts. Like say, for example, see this was sort of a translucent looking color, which is pretty good in clear water, but if the water's a little bit dirtier, I'll put more of a brighter white or pearl on there with like a white or pearl trailer to make it stand out more. And then on my green pumpkins and stuff like this, I use a lot of combination of brown, green, and orange. I put a lot of orange, and sometimes I'll put some dye on the tail of my trailers. So those are my two primary ones. Now, I'm not really, even though I say that, when I think they're feeding on crawdads, that this is a better color, I'm not completely convinced by that. To me, it's more time of the year. It's like, during the pre-spawn time of the year, when that water temperature's in the 50s, this is the color I use most 99% of the time. But the rest of the year, like for the post-spawn period, summertime, fall-time chatterbait fishing, I'm usually using some type of a shad pattern, but these are the two primary colors that I use. Now, excuse me, guys, still getting over the sinus infection I got. But let's talk a little bit about the equipment and the retrieve, because this is also a key element with it. Now, the thing about the chatterbait is you can lose a lot of fish on a chatterbait, and it doesn't really make a lot of sense because it's got a big, open hook on it with no weed guard. But there's something about the way they take that bait in the mouth that if you don't set the hook right on it, and if you don't have the right piece of equipment, you're gonna lose a lot of bass on a chatterbait. Now, the first thing that you can do is use the right rod. You need to use a fairly soft tip rod, so some type of a medium action. The rod that I use, I'll link it in the description too, it's that Megabass Launcher. It's a 7-foot, 11-inch rod that has I call it a medium tip on it. It's got a pretty soft tip on it, because when you're reeling that chatterbait through the water, you want that soft tip, because when that fish comes up and inhales that chatterbait, you need that rod to flex a little bit to give it just a little bit of time to get that bait deeper back in the fish's mouth. If you use a rod on a chatterbait that's too stiff, like if you use like a 7-foot medium heavy on that, you tend to pull the bait away from the fish a lot, especially if you set the hook. So first of all, use that softer rod. And in correlation with that, you have got to set the hook correctly on a chatterbait to use it. Now, most people, what happens is they're not expecting a strike. So when they get a strike, they tend to, just set the hook immediately on it. When you are fishing a chatterbait, you have got to make yourself aware of the fact that every cast you're getting ready to get a strike, because when you do that, you're going to set the hook correctly. Here's the way to set the hook correctly on a chatterbait. And if there's one piece of advice that you need to take away from this video on chatterbait fishing for next year, it's what I'm getting ready to tell you here. When you're reeling that chatterbait through the water like that, most of the time those fish don't hit it hard. Most of the time it just feels heavy, like almost like a wad of grass got on it. When you think you have a bite, don't ever reel back and set the hook. When you think you got a bite, just keep reeling like that and pull into the fish. Don't even move your rod back very far. Just like take a couple steps back and just start reeling really fast. And the combination of that rod flexing and the fact that you're not jerking that bait out of the fish's mouth like a live nerve ending, it's going to get that bait deeper back in that fish's mouth. And when that fish tries to open its mouth, maybe to spit the bait out, it's just going to continually penetrate with that pressure you're putting from reeling fast on there. Now, this is easier said than done. This is something that I tell you how I learned the hard way with it. I got watching Brett Hite. Brett Hite is arguably the chatterbait master. He's probably had more success on it than anyone. And I got watching a lot of videos, tournament videos that he did good in. And if you ever see Brett Hite, when he gets a bite on the chatterbait, you don't even really know he's got a bite. He just starts reeling fast. He doesn't ever set the hook. And I got thinking, it's like I was losing so many fish on a chatterbait. It's like, I was losing like 70 or 25% of the bites I'd get on it. And I finally forced myself just to reel through the strike like Brett was doing. And my land to bite ratio went up unbelievable with that. So that's one thing you really need to remember with it. Next is the line considerations. Most of the time in my chatterbait fishing, I prefer 17 to 20 pound test Seaguar and Vizex line. If I'm fishing around shallow objects where that bait's not getting very deep, like say I'm casting around next to a boat dock corner side, or next to a shallow grass bed, or next to a stump in the water, 20 pound test. But if I'm fishing a little bit deeper, like I'm slow rolling it down the edge of a deeper rocky bank, or I'm fishing it over the top of grass beds, I'll use 17 pound test, sometimes 15 pound test if I'm wanting to get it really deep. But most of the time, 17 to 20 pound test is going to be the setup that I use with that. Areas that you want to fish it in, guys, is everything. The chatterbait, one of the things we found out about it is that it is highly effective in almost any situation. I have yet to see a situation where you can't catch one on a chatterbait. It's like, I don't care if the fish are in 2 foot of water around a stump, or if they're in 20 foot of water around a deep brush pile, you can catch them on a chatterbait. And it started out, a lot of people thought that chatterbait was just for fishing around shallow grass, which that's one of its best applications. But a lot of guys started using it in the same places they'd fish a crankbait, a spinnerbait, whatever, and we've seen the effectiveness of it. So throw it anywhere. It's like if you're catching some fish on whatever you're fishing, just have a chatterbait on and try it, because sometimes unique vibration and the water displacement that a chatterbait offers, it's just what the fish want. So it's a 12-month out of the year bait. I mean, aside from just like dead winter when the water's 40 degrees, anytime that water temperature is over 50 degrees, you got a good chance of catching them on a chatterbait anywhere you go. So it's use it just wherever you do it. But probably my favorite way, if you say, okay, Randy, what's your favorite way to catch them on a chatterbait? It would be fishing it over deeper grass beds, like submergent hydrilla, submergent milfoil. I've caught a bunch of good ones doing that. Second to that would be fishing it on just some type of a rocky bank, like a riprap bank, a bluff bank, a channel bank, something where I'm just sort of slow rolling it down the side of that. And a chatterbait will also work in a lot of different water clarities. I've caught fish on a chatterbait in 6 inches of visibility and 15 foot of clarity. Caught them on a Lake Mead where the water's clarity is 15 feet, and I've caught them on it in some dirty rivers where it's just mud. So just a great bait, man. It's one of the greatest lures ever invented. I mean, chatterbait really is. I mean, even though it hadn't been on the scene very long, I'm telling you right now, guys, this thing, there's something special about it, man. It is a fish catching bait. So anyway, hope it helps you guys catch a few next year. We'll talk later.